Welcome to Thought Leaders, featuring interviews with some of the best minds in the industry. Today's special guest is popular platform speaker and syndicated financial columnist, Mike Devji. Hello everyone, I'm Steve Savant, syndicated financial columnist and talk show host. In this segment, we're talking about the well-armored and the exposed client, all from Ike's articles and contributions to Optimal Financial Health, the Doctor's Essential Wealth Management and Preservation Handbook. Well, we're talking about today, in this segment, I have to say, I'm thinking about liability insurance. We talked about this earlier. Steve's got umbrella policy. Now I'm kind of feeling like, well, that's for my personal side. It's not going to protect me on my consultant side. Right. I have to have something separate from that. And I think people are under the misnomer. I know I was before I met you, that my umbrella and my E&O covers my issues. I'm done. But you're saying there are so many other things to look at. So when we're talking about this, I want you to tell me about, I'm always thinking, how well armored am I? Have I got a protection plan, or am I exposed, and am I living under the delusion like the emperor had new clothes, he was completely naked?
That is a great analogy, absolutely. Thank you for having me back. You are correct, Steve. We find that consumers' knowledge, which advisors are responsible for, on insurance coverage and liability insurance coverage as a key part of a multi-step asset protection plan, is generally off, and it's off in a couple of different ways. So we talked about the fact that many people, including advisors, one of the big common fatal flaws of asset protection is thinking that you as an individual or that your clients, quote, aren't risky enough to worry about it. And we talked about the risk factors involved and how many there are and how common they are. It's not just about brain surgeons and jet pilots and other people who we think of being risky. It's anyone who has a house or a kid or a car or a business, right? Pretty common factors. We also find that people either don't think they're risky enough to have enough coverage or are uninformed about all the different kinds of coverage they have, or as in the case of the emperor's new clothes that you made reference to, they feel that, well, I bought an umbrella policy, so what could happen, right? I've got an S-Corp and an umbrella policy. What's the worst that could happen? And in our next segment, we're going to talk about some very specific things that are the worst that could happen. But we find that people don't understand the basic business model of insurance. I mean, think about it, Steve. If I write one check a year to an insurance company, is it reasonable for me as a consumer to assume that no matter what happens, where it happens, how it happens, somebody out there at some insurance company is going to cover me to an unlimited dollar amount? And if you think about that as a financial professional and say it out loud, it sounds stupid just saying it. So it's an unrealistic expectation of what an umbrella policy is. And to the consumer, umbrella is this big, warm, gentle arc that covers us with this veil of safety and everything that we do. And if we get in trouble, the insurance company is going to helicopter in some guy who's going to shoot down a rope with a bucket full of money. Anyone who's ever filed an insurance claim with even their own liability carrier knows that's pretty far from the truth, right? So we either have people who don't understand what the umbrella does and its limits, and the way I basically explain it to clients is it covers everything in your base policy to an increased dollar amount with a very long and specific list of exclusions and limitations, which is quite a bit different from the consumer's definition of everything, right? We're interpreting these things very differently between the buyers and sellers of liability insurance products in particular. The other mistake that we see is that many people don't have an umbrella at all. So on the one hand, I'm going to tell you that it is an important, vital, and absolutely required basic. I'm also going to tell you that on its own, it is not enough to protect you against the whole world. So for instance, if we have an exposure at the business that one of our viewers owns, they can't go back to their homeowner's insurance umbrella and say, you've got to protect me because an elderly lady had a slip and fall at my business and was critically injured. Or you can't go to your personal liability umbrella policy and say, I've been sued by an employee on a discriminatory discharge issue of some kind. And that carrier is going to look at your coverage and say, well, we've got an umbrella over your home and auto. When you have a problem in one of those areas, please give us a call back. So yes, it's vital, but it's limited. And it is one of many layers that the advisors that we're speaking to today better understand and advise their clients about.
So even if they were to go from your business scenario and try to pierce your personal assets, your umbrella is not going to defend, your personal home umbrella is not going to be a defense mechanism for your business and practice.
That's absolutely correct. Business assets and business liabilities need to be separately insured from personal assets and liabilities. And people need to make that distinction. And in many cases, they're going to need your viewers to help them understand that.
I think our viewers are sitting there right now calling their property casualty agent to see if they can get commercial insurance for their practice. I don't think many of us on our field as financial advisors as well as insurance professionals are thinking in this way. And I think today's a big wake-up call. My umbrella policy that a lot of us have is for our personal business, and it's not going to be a protection mechanism for our business or anything that happens during our practice. I think that's a revelation that most of our audience are going to have. Listen, for more information on how you can tailor a well-armored protection plan, especially after this conversation, and this information, how can it help you expand your business, and I want to put on there and protect it, click on the landing page information in our video description. We'll be right back with more from Ike Devji.
A solid web presence has never been more important to the success of your business. Introducing Agent Website Creator, provided by CreativeOne. Through Agent Website Creator, you can create your own personalized website and have it up and running easily with zero knowledge of programming. Choose from several designs with easy drag and drop customization. Get proven lead generation offers, professionally written articles, and helpful financial calculators. Plus, the ability to embed videos, integrate your social media, and more. Update your website anytime and show the world within minutes. The best part? It's hosted for free. To learn more about Agent Website Creator, call your CreativeOne sales team at 800-992-2642 or visit us online at creativeone.com.
In this segment, we're talking about real-life stories from business litigation that will actually shock you. Some of this is from Ike's articles and contributions to the Optimal Financial Health, the Doctor's Essential Wealth Management and Preservation Handbook. Well, I have to say, some of the things you've already said kind of shocked me. I think in the last segment, many of our audience might be going out calling their property casualty insurance agent to see if they can tie down something to protect their umbrella that's for their home isn't protecting their business. Now, when you talk about other gaps, I mean, I'm thinking I'm trying to protect myself, but I'm in business with another partner. Isn't his sins and omissions his issues and mine are separate from that?
Ideally, that would be the case, but that's unfortunately not the truth. And obviously, this is, again, a kind of a fact-specific thing. But let's say you own a business with 3 other partners. And 1 or 2 of those partners, for instance, is misrepresenting the business or making claims that are fraudulent or harassing or discriminating against an employee or using a company vehicle while they're intoxicated or having an event or a party at your business location and incurs the liability, whether you knew it or were part of it or not. You get to go to the dance on all of those, right? And those are very common kinds of things. Especially post-2008, we also saw when the economy collapsed, we saw more intra-company lawsuits than I've ever seen before. You know that I've been practicing as an asset protection-only attorney for 12 years now. Before that, I was the bad guy, so to speak. I was on the litigation side, right? So I've seen a lot of lawsuits against clients. I've been part of lawsuits. I have never seen so many business partners suing each other as I did after 2008. And it was economic pressure and fear and desperation that led to some of that. Some of it was that same fear and pressure and desperation also led to the greatest amount of theft and embezzlement we've ever seen. And again, these are all things that can be appropriately covered against, but that most people are unaware of.
Sounds like if you're going to be partners with somebody, you need to share some similar ethics, belief systems. Do you have to be able to put into place actual language in your human resources documents? Sounds like there's a lot of homework here.
I can't agree with you more, Steve. Yes, all of those things come into play, especially when we're talking about the fact that you're going to be responsible for everything that partner does, directly or indirectly. And not to mention the fact that we're also now seeing more actions against business owners and executives directly than ever before. So the SEC and a number of the other regulatory agencies out there have openly and explicitly stated, this is on my website, I've got an article that quotes the head of the SEC saying that we're going to go after C-level executives because they're easier to break and fight than a big company when you can just sue the one guy who you want to blame for the thing that you're upset with the company about. So if you have a medical practice and one of your partners sexually harasses the surgical assistant, you get to go to the dance on that. And it might affect you directly where you're named in the lawsuit, or it might affect you indirectly where your business has to give up $500,000 as the average sexual harassment verdict, for instance, because of something you had nothing to do with.
Now, I'm thinking one of my favorite shows on television is Shark Tank. I've seen almost every episode, and every so often, Mark Cuban will bow out strictly on the risk that he could be sued because he's the deep pocket person behind the new company. So if he takes 30% interest, he's now the owner, and he says, I can't do it because I feel the risk is too great that if something goes south, I'm going to be at the bottom of the pocket, the deep pocket.
I love Shark Tank as well, and I've heard Mark say the same thing, as have some of the other sharks, and I agree with them 100%. These are conversations we have all the time. We had a case, going to some specific examples, a few years ago where a business executive who is an expert in a certain field was given a percentage of an LLC by the guys who set it up as inducement for his participation in the future. And they said, you're such an expert in this one area. We would like you to be part of this project because you will make this project bigger and more profitable for everyone. And we don't even want you to put any money in. We're going to give you a piece of the deal because we know how much value you add. Well, that deal went sideways when the economy collapsed for various reasons. And the investors in that deal sued all of the people who were the owners of that LLC. Now, at this point, our subject client had never made a decision, had never put a dollar in, had never done a day's work, had no management or control of the business at all. He was, to some degree, along for the ride, and if it made it, great. But this was the beginning stages. Well, when the economy collapsed and they couldn't carry this project forward the way everybody honestly hoped and planned to, there was a lawsuit. And the California judge decided to hold all of the members of that company, in this case an LLC, jointly and severally liable for the entire judgment. Guess who the deepest pocket was? It was my guy who had done the least amount of work or had made zero contribution and wasn't responsible for this failure in any way. And he was most heavily pursued. And we've got lots of examples. We have examples of what we call risk myopia, right? So let's say professionals, like a contractor is worried mostly about construction defect claims. A doctor is worried mostly about a medical malpractice claim, right? But we see that the exposure can come from any direction. So we've had, for instance, a client whose teenage child threw a party when they were away for the weekend, and another child that came over who wasn't invited, who the young lady who threw the party didn't know, and she threw this party, of course, without mom and dad's permission, as is going to happen thousands of times across this country this week. That child died in their backyard, and the client was served with a $3 million wrongful death lawsuit. Or we've had a case where a two-physician couple who was very concerned about medical malpractice risk got blindsided when their nanny, who was driving their children somewhere, hit a construction person who was standing on the road with one of those little signs that says slow. She turned around to talk to the children, clipped that person, and that person was launched into a stationary object and was very severely injured. My recollection is lifetime injuries. And of course, because you've got a 22-year-old nanny who's an employee of two older, more successful people, who do you think was pursued in that case? We talk about sexual harassment and discrimination suits are at an all-time high and regularly produce six-figure verdicts. We've had significant injuries that people didn't expect. We had a CEO of a national medical company who came to us to be protected against what he felt was his professional liability. The first time he used the planning and all of the coverage and all the things that we've been talking about in these segments is when a worker at his home was severely injured and fell off the roof. Right? This is not something that he ever dreamed would happen, and we didn't either. But we made sure that all of these layers were in place, which meant that he had a high umbrella personal liability on the home, and that the non-qualified assets and other things had been put out of reach with legal tools.
These are so interesting. I mean, we go on and on. Listen, for more information on all the talking points of these stories and how you can use them in your practice, just click on the landing page address in the video description. And for more information on all our shows, seminars, and workshops, just follow us out on our social media page and visit us out on our website. I'm Steve Savant. We'll see you next time on Thought Leaders. And remember, keep thinking outside the box.